I, 30 female, have been married to my husband, 33 male, for a year. It was my husband's birthday today, so I put together a dinner party with some close family and friends to celebrate. My husband is very close to his family, so I made sure everyone can make it and let them know in advance. The problem started with my mother in law, 50 female, and her new husband, 56 male. Now, I've always had a feeling that my mother in law never really approved of me, but she has never made it obvious, and I choose to ignore the subtle indications for my husband's sake. However, she got married to my father in law barely 6 months ago and has been really getting on my nerves ever since. My husband and I live in the same town as them, and we meet my mother in law and sister in law pretty frequently for dinner. Every time we meet, mother in law makes me miserable by trying to make everything perfect for my new father in law. For context, father in law is a very particular man and gets upset if things aren't exactly to his liking. This plays out in things like what we have for dinner, what drinks we get, and even where we go. My mother in law seems to be completely enamored with him, so she agrees to whatever he says. I think he's an entitled, spoiled manchild. But I've never said anything about this to either my mother in law or husband because it has never created major problems for me. But today, they just crossed all limits. I love cooking, and it's how I show my love and appreciation for the people I love. Naturally, I planned on cooking for everyone at my husband's birthday party tonight. I planned the menu well in advance and did all the shopping. While I was cooking in the afternoon, I got a call from my mother in law. I picked up expecting the usual questions about the timings or the party in general, but without even greeting me properly, she asked what I was making for dinner. I was a bit surprised at that, but told her we were having Italian food as everyone knows it's my husband's favorite. She told me that father-in-law wants to have steak, so could I make some for both of them? I was really confused and told her that I was already in the middle of cooking, and it was not possible for me to make steak now. She told me that father-in-law was insisting on Indian food and that it would not take me too long to make two steaks for both of them. Now, I believe that I'm a fairly reasonable person, but I refuse to go out of my way to cook something for an entitled man-child, refusing to eat a perfectly normal meal for no reason whatsoever. I told mother-in-law that I can only make Italian food, but if they want to get some takeaway or order food, they're free to do so. She absolutely lost it and said I'm being completely unreasonable and selfish. Since I know how to cook, I should just shut up and make the damn steak. I could not believe her tone. I said that it's my dinner, that I'm cooking for my husband's birthday, and they're free to not eat if they don't want my food. Mother-in-law told me that I was being selfish and that if I refused to make steak, they would both attend the party and leave without eating anything. I think she expected me to give in to avoid awkwardness, but I was too angry to care. I told her that was fine with me and hung up. Soon after that, my husband called me up asking why I was rude to his mother. Now, that's what really made me angry. Here I was working all day to make his birthday special, and he has the audacity to ask me that. I asked him what she told him, and he said that mother-in-law told him I'm unwilling to make a small change to my dinner plan. I was furious. Two entire steak dinners apart from the 3 courses I was making by myself, and they were calling it a small change? I tried my best to maintain composure and told my husband that our guests would eat what I make and not eat at all otherwise. I hung up before he could say something else. I knew I was in for a difficult evening, but what my mother-in-law and husband did managed to exceed anything I could predict. Flash forward to dinner. I set up the table and started serving everyone. My mother-in-law saw the food and asked where the steaks were, and I calmly said that whatever I had made was on the table. My father-in-law turned tomato red in anger and immediately left the table. Mother-in-law gave me a death glare and followed him. The other guests were looking extremely uncomfortable, so I tried to pacify the situation by telling everyone to enjoy their food. Not one word was spoken during the entire meal, and it was hands down the most awkward and uncomfortable dinner I've ever sat through. My husband refused to look at me, and I felt really bad. My mother-in-law and father-in-law waited in our living room till the guests had left. But the moment the last guest left, all hell broke loose. Mother-in-law started screaming at me, saying that I knew father-in-law is selective about what he eats, and was it really that difficult for me to accommodate a simple request? Father-in-law just looked offended and didn't say a single word. I expected his reaction and really didn't care what they thought of me, but my husband's reaction was what made me furious. He told me he was disappointed in me for not indulging in a simple request and that I had ruined the party for no reason. I tried to make him understand that it was too short notice, and it's not like mother-in-law and father-in-law had a genuine reason like a food allergy or something. Husband refused to listen to anything, and he's sleeping in the guest room tonight because he wanted some time away, apparently. So, Reddit, AITA for not cooking a special meal for my mother-in-law and father-in-law? Update 1. The dinner party was last night, and my husband is barely speaking to me. This morning, I prepared breakfast for both of us, and he went out in a rush without eating anything. At this point, I think he's being annoying. It might have been rude to let my in-laws starve during the party, but I still feel they deserved it. Instead of being big babies, if they had just eaten the perfectly nice meal I spent hours cooking, no one would have a tough time. I wouldn't even put it past my mother-in-law and father-in-law to throw this tantrum simply to annoy me and put me in an awkward place in front of my husband and other guests. Actually, I don't really think I'd have minded cooking separately for them if they had let me know in advance. At this point, I'm still standing by what I did. If my mother-in-law hadn't indulged every whim my father-in-law has ever shown, maybe we wouldn't be at this point in the first place. He might think he can be an entitled little man-child with his wife, but I don't owe him anything. Update 2. Oh my God, I can't believe what my mother-in-law did. My husband came back from work today and told me he's going to have dinner at my mother-in-law's place. I told him I didn't know about this plan, and he awkwardly told me that he was the only one who was invited. How childish is this? I cannot believe that they're doing this. I'm eating dinner alone tonight, and honestly, I think I'm better off. If this is how they want to do things, then so be it. Less cooking for me to do anyway, so I don't care. I do want to have a conversation with my husband about the whole thing once he comes back, though. I'm very interested in seeing how he reacts. Mother-in-law will no doubt fill up his head with all sorts of nonsense about me, and I want to see if he defends me or just takes his mom's side. Update 3. Had a talk with my husband, so when he came back, I didn't say anything, hoping he'd be the one to bring it up. We spent an hour or so in complete silence after he came back from mother-in-law's place, which just made me really angry. I understand he loves his mother, but shouldn't he also hear out my side of the story? Anyway, he did speak up eventually. He told me how upset mother-in-law was with me. Apparently, father-in-law was too angry at what I had done and refused to eat something when they went back from my husband's party. This just made me laugh. How a grown man can throw a tantrum to this extent is beyond my understanding. My husband then told me that mother-in-law was heartbroken and expected an apology from me. Can you guys even believe that? Why should I apologize? It's not as if I told them I'd cook and then ditch the idea. I had made my stand clear from the very first phone call mother-in-law made, and if they still came to the party expecting a special meal, then it's their problem, not mine. I asked my husband how he feels about this whole incident, and he basically took mother-in-law's side. He said that adding one more item to the menu wouldn't cause too much trouble, and I've made his family upset for no reason. We had a fight after this, and I told him he's free to go grocery shopping and cook whatever he wants for his family from now on, and to leave me out of it. How 3 grown adults can be so petty is honestly beyond me. But now I'm convinced that what I did was the right thing to do. If anyone has a problem with that, it's none of my business. I'm the one who deserves an apology for all the trouble they put me through after I did my best to throw a nice party for my husband. NTA, your father-in-law sounds laughable, and your mother-in-law is just enabling his entitled behavior. Your husband should have appreciated your party and taken your side. I hope you only cook for people who actually appreciate you from now on, because these people sound toxic. If your mother-in-law really wanted to feed her husband, she should have at least offered to come over and help you out with the cooking. I think everyone would have been happy in that situation. Protect your peace. You are NTA. YTA, was it really that hard to prepare 2 steaks? You're telling us that you prepared a full Italian meal for your guests, but throwing 2 steaks on the pan would have been too much? That's ridiculous. Maybe your in-laws were being a little unreasonable, but instead of letting them go empty-stomached in front of other guests, you should have cooked and then maybe had a conversation with your husband and mother-in-law about it. You've made such a fuss about being a great wife and throwing a party for your husband, but you've obviously made him upset and uncomfortable. YTA. Next story. My daughter, 31, is currently in the process of moving. She's been living in Brussels for the past 4 years and is now moving back to London as she was offered a better position. She can move into her new flat in mid-February, so she asked if she could stay with me, and of course I agreed. I missed her. Of course, I refused to accept any rent she offered. It's been great, but one thing I've noticed is that my daughter has a habit of ordering online. A lot. She runs out of toothpaste. She won't bother going to the shop. She'll just order it online with her other essentials like shampoo. Needs clothes or stuff for her new house? She'll order it. She even bought her father's birthday gift and wrapping paper online. She even has groceries delivered because she insists she pays for them because she lives rent-free. She barely goes to shops, and because of people like her, our high streets are dying. It's unhealthy, and every time for a week now, whenever a package came, I returned it, which forced her to shop locally a few times. But now, because quite a few packages never arrived, she realized what's been happening and confronted me, and she's fuming. She's accused me of treating her like a child and saying I had no right to return her stuff. I told her that something had to be done, and I tried explaining my point, but she told me she was done, packed her stuff, and went to stay at a hotel, wasting money. I asked her to move back and promised to not do it again, but she's stubborn and won't listen. She told me she'll stay at a hotel until she can move into her flat. I only wanted to help her, but she's being so unreasonable. My husband stays neutral, and I don't know. Was I the a-hole here? Was I wrong for returning those packages? YTA, I only wanted to help her, is a false statement. You wanted her to do things your way and decided to force her to do so because you feel your way is the best way and the only way. It is a controlling thing with you. She was right to leave. In your mind, you will never be wrong, and this is evidenced by calling her unreasonable for her reaction to your treachery. What in the world? Yes, you're absolutely TA. It's 2023. People order stuff online. She's a working professional and likes the convenience. And it's not like she's a freeloader. She offered to pay you rent. You just don't approve of her lifestyle, which is very common and modern. Besides that, it's not even a big thing. She's ordering packages. Big whoop. I'm blown away that your first resort was to be vindictive and conniving, sending away your daughter's possessions because you think she should be going to the store. What the hell? YTA, we're in 2023. Ordering online is a really common way to get stuff delivered to your door instead of going to the store and finding it to not be in stock. Why would you get in your daughter's business? She's obviously old enough to make her own decisions. You had no right to return her packages to make her go to the store. Next story. My son, 21, started dating Amber, 21, female, 3 years ago, and at the end of 2021, she moved into my house. I allowed it for the sake of my son's mental health or feelings. Her parents were moving out of state and she didn't have any friends or family she could stay with her. I watched my son cry for weeks because his girlfriend had no choice but to move away with her parents, and ultimately, Mama Bear came out and protected my son the only way I knew how. So she moved in, but I made it perfectly clear to both my son and Amber that I fully expected rent payments to cover food and the extra hot water cost. I was only going to charge exactly what the extra cost would have been, which was roughly $400, and also stated that Amber was to get a job. Both of them agreed to this. I even put it in writing and had it filled out as a tenancy agreement so that they could get their own place afterwards and have references for rental history. So the lease was all signed, stamped, and notarized. In the first couple of months, it really appeared like Amber was trying to get a job, but after that, she just full on stopped giving a frick. If I asked if she had rent, she would immediately be like, "You know I don't," and just shrugged it off. My son was paying the entire rent himself, which, whatever. If he wants to do that, then that's on him. But it was the lack of caring and the complete taking advantage of the situation that pissed me off. After about 7 months, I sat Amber down and reminded her of my agreement and told her she was walking on thin ice and that I was fed up with her not even attempting to hold up her end of the deal. She then pulled the "I understand where you're coming from, but tried to be sympathetic about the fact that I haven't seen my parents in months and I'm struggling to even get out of bed." I did sympathize with this. I even offered to get her to therapy. She said she would when she felt she was mentally ready. Yeah, that time never came, but the excuses stuck. It's always a different excuse, but usually has something to do with missing her parents. Well, this month I saw that my hot water bill skyrocketed by an extra $300. It then came to my attention that Amber has been showering 3 times a day because standing under the scalding water is the only thing that takes away my sadness. At this point, I was done. I'm forking out an extra $700 a month with no help from her, and my son is struggling to pay her portion because he is in college. So I again told her she needed a job. She pulls the "I'm so depressed I can barely drag myself out of bed. I can't work outside of this house." I snapped and said I refused to accept her millions of mental illness excuses anymore, and either she finds a job within the month or I'm canceling her lease and she can get the frick out. She ran to the room crying and slammed the door. AITA? NTA. Any mental illness is an explanation but not an excuse. I doubt she even has a mental health issue, but is really just lazy. Amber needs to go, and now she has broken the lease, so it is time to evict her. Your son will need to cope with it, just as any adult needs to cope with life-changing situations. NTA when she pulls the "try to be sympathetic about the fact that I haven't seen my parents in months." Buy her a one-way ticket to wherever they are. Do not let her back in the house. If this is too hard for your son, perhaps it's time for him to move out too. NTA, you are the landlord, not her parent. Really, you need to sit them both down and have a talk about responsibilities. and perhaps have a private parental talk with your son to see how he feels about things. If her mental health is so poor that she can't work, she needs to go through the process to get disability, and if she is unable or unwilling to do this, suggest her parents support her, either by her going to them or them gifting her money to cover her responsibilities. As someone who has lived with depression, anxiety my entire adult life and held down full-time jobs, I detest people who use mental health as an excuse to freeload. Next story. I have two daughters, Ashley, 26, female, and Alex, 15, female. I'm going to start by saying they don't get along that well, and it's due to the age difference. Recently, though, they have been getting closer since Ashley let Alex help plan the wedding. It was really nice of her to include her in this. Well, the wedding was yesterday and I was supposed to wear formal attire, so before this, we both got long dresses. Alex was supposed to wear the dress she got, which was sage green. Alex normally wears emo clothes at the moment, which is fine. Well, she came down in the green dress and put a large slit in it that goes up to her thigh. She also added a skull necklace, earrings, punk rock boots, and really dark makeup. I told her to take that jewelry off quickly and give me the dress so I could fit the slit or at least make it shorter. Alex got mad and said it was fine and was in the dress code. I told her no, and that she will stand out. She refused again, and I told her if she didn't fix it, then she can stay home. She refused again, and she missed the wedding. Ashley understood why her sister wasn't here, but my husband was furious with me and called me a jerk. Alex is still not talking to me also. Edit. Comments people said were relevant. I got there really early before the wedding and brought the issue up in person. Ashley was still getting ready, and that's when we had the conversation. She agreed it would be best. I also texted my daughter that if she changed the outfit, I could pick her up in time for the wedding. No response. I am fine with her expressing herself. She picked out the dress and she told me what she was going to do for her makeup. Then the day of the wedding, she did all of this. The slit was so high I could see her underwear as she walked fast. Not to mention the jewelry was huge. I just don't get why she would do that. It was inappropriate to dress like that for the event. There's a time and place. Not to mention, my Ashley was fine with Alex missing the wedding. She didn't want her there looking like that either. If the bride didn't want her there looking like that either, why is everyone saying it's your fault? Yeah, maybe you could have compromised on smaller jewelry or something, but I don't think not letting your 15-year-old show a whole wedding, her underwear, because her dress slit is up so high, makes you the bad guy. NTA. You said that both her outfit and makeup were discussed prior and deemed acceptable. Then on the day off, she modified her makeup and outfit to extremes. I mean, a slit so high you can see her underwear? JFC, that's attention-seeking, if not downright malicious. Also, most importantly, the bride is glad you made this decision. The consequences might be tough to deal with, but you did the right thing. NTA. All these YTAs replies shows that no one understands the concept of a dress code anymore. Would your response be different if OP's daughter had come down in a white dress? You don't try and stand out during a wedding, whether that's with a white dress or punk clothes. OP's daughter picked out her dress and makeup before the event and ran it through with her mom. On the day of the event, she modified the dress and changed her makeup and accessories to something most definitely not appropriate for formal attire. OP said she needed to change it or she wouldn't be allowed to come. Her daughter refused to change her outfit to abide by the dress code, so she wasn't allowed to come. Her daughter seriously couldn't put aside her personal style for one day to support her sister. That's really selfish of her. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.